Should we start with this video, sir? It's 5 o'clock, or we should wait for a minute? Or...
I think we should wait for some minutes, sir.
Okay. So after 2 minutes, I will start with this video, Satish.
Yes, sir. नहीं होगी तो जो ग्रुप में तो आपको मैंने डाली थी।
We, the Indian Society of Heating, Refrigerating and Air Conditioning Engineers, ISHRE, stand tall in the Indian industry with over 10,000 professionals as members and almost an equal number of student members. Founded in 1981 and headquartered in Delhi, we operate from chapters and sub-chapters spread all over India, bringing our entire industry together. Individuals become members of our society according to their professional and academic standings. Our roadmap of the future looks very bright, with thousands of new members joining this technical society every year and bringing in a fresh outlook to our industry intelligence. ISHRE disseminates knowledge through its technical committees, which consists of some of the best minds of our industry. It publishes technical books, newsletters, and a prestigious journal, distributing the wealth of knowledge to all its members. Working with government departments, ISHRE helps formalize industry codes and standards. ISHRE promotes research by offering financial support to student members to carry out groundbreaking work in technology, systems and processes. Our educational wing, ISHRE Institute of Excellence, organizes training programs and workshops to help members enhance their skill sets. Our specially designed certification programs under ICP, that is, ISHRE Certified Professional, empower professionals to always be in step with the prevailing technology. Specially designed courses for technicians are offered to meet the ever-increasing demand for a skilled workforce. ISHRE organizes exhibitions, conferences, panel discussions, and product presentations throughout the country. We organize the industry's largest international exposition in South Asia, Acrex India, to showcase the cutting-edge technology, innovation, and provide a platform for closer interactions amongst the decision makers in the industry. The Acrex exhibition is now growing from HVAC&R show into BFA, Build Fair Alliance. This brings together several allied shows connected with the building services industry, all at one location. Our chapters organize several other popular events like AgriConf in Delhi, Raycon in Kolkata, Symposia in Mumbai, TechFest in Goa, and many more. We are committed to provide training and career guidance to our student members through seminars, lectures, quiz contests and site visits. A-Quest, a prestigious quiz competition organized by ISHRE to catalyze the transformation of the budding engineering professionals. ISHRE provides a platform to potential employers to select student members for careers in HVAC and our industry at the ISHRE Job Junction. Young minds are made aware of the need for saving power, clean air and sustainability. The K-12 initiative of ISHRE focuses attention on school students' development to inculcate a scientific fervor and help develop them into responsible citizens. Speedy information is imperative to keep moving forward in this hyper-connected digital age. Searcher, a specifically designed search engine, is now available, which allows access to a well-catalogued database on HVACR and building services industry with just a few clicks. ISHRE cooperates with various national and international bodies, industry, governments, academia, think tanks to promote the concept of sustainability, environmental protection and energy efficiency and conservation, to enter and explore the universe of the Indian HVACR industry. Log on to ishray.in that unfolds a panorama of information. Let us engineer a sustainable future together through Ishray.
CLP is the annual partner of Delhi chapter of ISRE. He is the gold partner for Society at 2021-2022. Brief detail about ALP. They are into the insulation solutions. Some portfolio that you can look over. About LBR Plex, key certification, key projects, but they have. For their contact detail, you can contact him directly related to any queries of insulations. So thank you and welcome all. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, as we know that today we'll cover indoor air quality in hospitals during COVID-19. This is the topic that we are going to cover. And our expert speaker for the day is Dr. Priyanka Kulshreshtha. Yes, we have this program is initiated by ISRE Merit Subchapter and supported by Delhi chapter of ISRE. This program is also supported by PGMT and definitely supported by our annual partner of TCI, gold partner LPR Flex, extended refrigeration, advanced wall, fluke, load insulation, membership partner Aircon Engineers. Without delay, I request President of Merit Subchapter, Mr. Satish Kumar, to proceed this program further or introduce Dr. Priyanka Kulshreshtha in front of us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible, man?
Yes.
Rajesh ji?
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. A very warm welcome to you, all of you in this webinar. I hope all of you and our family are safe in the pandemic COVID time.
Sir, little echo is there in your voice.
So I think Satish Kumar ji, you need to switch off. You have two devices on. Switch off one device so that there will be no echo. Please switch off one device. From one device, and you can switch on your camera also.
Actually, one another our member is with us in my room also. Now we are going to get knowledge about IAQ in hospital during COVID-19, and we have a great lady with us, Dr. Priyanka Kulshreshtha. Dr. Priyanka is founding member and joint secretary of Society for Indoor Environment. She is presently a faculty at University of Delhi. She has 18 years of research experience in the field of exposure assessment and indoor air quality. She has industry and academic experience for more than a decade and has supervised post-graduate dissertation projects. She has worked as a doctorate research fellow of Hospital Legis Sacco, University of Milan, Italy, where she was actively involved in a European Commission project, HealthVent. She was involved in teaching activities on indoor air quality and health for MS course, risk assessment and risk analysis at Department of Occupational and Environmental Health. Hospital Leagues Sacco, University of Milan, Italy. She is the reviewer to many international journals like Journal of Pollution and Health, Atmospheric Pollution Research, International Journal for Air and Waste Management, Air Quality, Atmospheric and Health, amongst others. She has to her credit more than 35 publications in referred international journals, articles, conference papers, and book chapters. She has a business faculty at International Center for Environmental Audit and Sustainable Development for capacity building of auditors on issues related to environment and sustainable development. She is on the editorial board member of international journals, Journals of Pollution and Health, Sustainability and Environment. She has been the scientific co-convener in the Asian Conference on Indoor Environmental Qualities 2019. She has been on panel and as an expert in various international workshops on air quality issues. this is a small about ma'am. I think we should start now. Thanks, ma'am. Please start.
Thank you, Satish ji. Thanks a lot. I'll take it forward from here. Thank you, Rajesh ji, for giving me this forum to share my views on a topic which may not be very technical, but yes, in present times, it is something that the more awareness we have, the better it would be for all of us. Just give me a minute to share my screen. I hope everybody is able to see my screen.
Yeah, we are able.
Yeah. A very good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be a part of this forum, and Meerut has always been special. Earlier there was a time when we could go ahead and meet you all in person and give this webinar, but give this talk rather. But presently, we have to be fine with this webinar concept only. There is some problem with the slides. Just hold on, please. Yeah, so this is my topic. Instead of hospitals, I have tried to reframe it as healthcare facilities that we are talking about in terms of indoor air quality during this COVID-19 era that we are presently in. To start with, when we talk about air, Florence Nightingale has truly put it as the first canon of nursing is to keep the air that the patient breathes as pure as the external air without chilling him. So the idea of indoor air was there from the time immemorial, but it is just recently that we have been able to recognize the importance of indoor air, especially in the COVID scenario. So since we're talking about COVID, there has been a lot of, everyone is aware about its initiation in December 2019 and how it crossed boundaries and how it affected us. So it is something of what you see. If you see to your right most figure, the blue dot that you see is the coronavirus droplet that you are able to see. That's 0.1 micron. So till now we have been talking about PM10, which looks humongous, PM 2.5, which is very much there, but this is a particle, this is a coronavirus droplet, which if attaches itself to a particle, the transmission of it goes further. And that is still a point of debate. Now, we all know we are reeling under this burden of COVID-19. We have had the first wave from June to December last year, which was very good in terms of containment. But we saw the worst this year from, I hope this is the worst that we have seen from this April and May. And to present you the absolute data for the recent times, we have had till today, today in India, we have 11,67,000 cases in India, which at a point of time were around 3 crores. So we are still way back when we talk about the vaccination status. We have just had 33,79,000 people vaccinated, and we are a long way to go. As you can see, the total vaccination doses. So this is how you actually see the visual that you see or on your TVs, on the news about the COVID-19 patients being in the hospital or quarantine centers. We are going to talk about it in detail later. But COVID-19 has been a point of concern, not because of what it actually does, but in case someone is having a chronic disease or already a comorbidity, it creates havoc on our immune system. So as I had already discussed last time when I was in Meerut, we had discussed that we are reeling under a lot of air pollution, and we normally are smoking more than 7 cigarettes a day, even if I'm a non-smoker. So considering that, considering the condition of our lungs staying in Delhi, and with this COVID-19, it has exacerbated the condition all the more. So now when we say that we are indoors, and as most of us have been in during this April and May times, due to the lockdown last year as well, that means that if I have an air conditioner at home, or I have a HVAC system at home, we are breathing a very clean air. It's better than outside. No, sorry. This is something which really needs to be taken care of, because this is something people are unable to understand. We consider pollution as an outdoor concept, but we don't realize the fact, and there are many research studies to prove that the air inside has more concentration of pollutants than what you can see outdoors. Indoor air pollution is an area which has been very much neglected. I did my PhD in 2002. I started it in 2002, and that was the time when people used to laugh at the topic of my PhD, because for them pollution was always outdoors. Pollution was always from vehicles. Pollution was always about burning biomass fuel. It was not indoors. Indoors is somewhere we are very comfortable with. It is only in 2016 that we realized that when the air pollution levels were so high that we were able to see that smog in December, that staying indoors, and let's not open the doors and windows because outdoors is bad. Imagine that scenario inside and you not being able to see it. The global burden of disease risk has put indoor air pollution as the 9th biggest health risk. Why indoor air? When I say indoor air pollution, it is inevitably everywhere. It is in your house, it is in the schools, the office buildings, the healthcare centers, the malls, industries. Only thing is that the sources could be, the concentration of the sources in different microenvironments would be different. In schools, it could possibly be dust because of the chalk dust. In healthcare units, it could possibly be volatile organic compounds or biological allergens. Whereas one thing which is constant amongst all the microenvironment is the humidity levels, the thermal environment, and the air movement. And that is what is of concern when we talk about healthcare facilities in present scenario. This is some of the data when we talk about healthcare facilities. And I would say this is not what we are concerned today. This was what we were concerned in the pre-COVID era, where people were affected by the hospital-acquired infections. One such case and one such case study which I would like to present is myself. I had an operation. I got a bacterial infection, which was so bad that I had to go further, 2 surgeries further and 5 hospital admissions because of the hospital-acquired infection of E. coli. Now, E. coli is a bacteria which has a very higher tendency to multiply. And had it, what I was told by the doctors was, had it not been for my age, it would have been disastrous, detrimental for my health. So this is how well, and I'm talking about the good healthcare facilities which are available in Delhi NCR. We are not going down rural areas or semi-urban areas where probably this is not being monitored at all. Now, what could be the risk factors in the healthcare facilities which are there? The basic idea about temperature and relative humidity is to be monitored. The healthcare facilities need to have a right temperature which is comfortable for the patients, for the people who are visiting them, and also not nurture any kind of molds or bacteria. Similarly, for the relative humidity, a 30 to 60% of relative humidity is said to be good, because lower humidity would anyways give make the air dry, and it would give the resuspension of particles would be a problem. So the risk factors in terms of chemical factors, they are, I'll come up to a case study which I'll be sharing with you recently. It was a 2020 case study. And there we realize that it is not just limited to these chemicals that you see on your screen. It is not about only volatile organic compounds, formaldehyde, or other cleaning agents which are used. The problem in healthcare facilities was also of carbon dioxide, which we don't realize, which we don't adhere to, or we don't address. Now, this is an area which is of most neglect, and this is what has hit us the most: the presence of microorganisms. Now, when we used to do indoor, if you go through the data, there are very few studies, something which you can count on your fingers, which have been done on bioaerosol. Leave aside any healthcare facilities in India, have conducted an indoor air quality study primarily aiming at the bioaerosols. That is what has hit us more, because we were not prepared for this kind of virus invasion in our lives. Now, what are the routes of transmission? Whether if we consider in normality, there are three routes when we talk about the transmission: contact, route, droplet, and airborne. The contact is when we are directly in touch with the person, we are talking to them, and we are nearby them, or we have used an item, and we have put the virus on that or any other infection on it, and then the other person has used the same item. It could be a bottle, it could be a phone, it could be a laptop, anything which is inanimate. The droplet transmission that we talk about is a kind of contact transmission, whereas where people, when they are talking, they emit certain droplets. It could be the bigger droplets that could be that could just fall onto the ground, or they could be very minute aerosol type of droplets which stay hanging which are hanging in the air for a longer duration of time. Now, when we talk about airborne transmission, and which WHO has also recognized, it is said that these it is a type of an indirect contact, and mostly particles make sure that they are transported by the convective air currents. So now, if we are talking about coronavirus, this is how it works. So if there are when I said aerosol droplets, I meant the particles which are very fine, which you, when you're breathing probably, or when you're speaking, they are coming out, and they can remain suspended for a longer duration of time. Now, this is how it fills. This is how these droplets, though we may not take it into account, but the exposure of the person to these droplets is what is a difference. Now, if somebody comes to your house, you open your door and just take a packet, the exposure has been some seconds. If somebody comes to your house, stays for 2-3 hours and then goes away, that exposure is a longer exposure. So the exposure makes a lot of difference when we talk about the transmission and infection probability of any kind of virus. So when we were monitoring earlier, we used to have these, the aim was that it should be a functional requirement for any built environment, whether it is a school, whether it is an office, whether it is your home, there have to be some standards to meet that functional requirement. We should know what is the pollutant type. Like I said, in different microenvironments, the pollutant type is different. For a home, it could possibly be nitrogen dioxide coming out of your gas stoves, or it could possibly be finer particles, or if you have some dampness, it could possibly be molds. But we need to find out which microenvironment has what type of pollutant. What is the way of monitoring and measuring it? And how is the ventilation impacting that kind of measurement? Finally, the whole fundamental behind this monitoring is about studying the exposure of the people who are living in that building to those pollutants. Now, those pollutants have been replaced by coronavirus in the last 1.5 years, which is a completely different story. So now this case study, we did it in 2020, January and February, just before the pre-COVID era. I think this would be a historic data now, because we did this study in 6 different public spaces. Now, this study, what I am representing here is just about the healthcare data, but this was done in 5 other public spaces comprising of schools, offices, restaurants, malls, and homes. So as you can see, the concentration of PM10, PM2.5 in totality is much higher than what has been recommended. If we go by the rule book of National Ambient Air Quality Standards, it has to be somewhere around 60 microgram per meter cube. And you can see in the conditions, especially during the evening hours when the OPD starts, it goes up to 700 to 800 microgram. Now, the problem with particulate is, if these viruses can, if there is a the infected person in your area, it need not be that you are talking to him and you get infected. It is that the person is talking and the aerosol droplet that you saw, if that gets attached to one of these particulate, it can remain, especially PM2.5, it can remain hanging in your house or in that particular place for hours. And you will not know when you get infected. And probably this is what the scientists have been arguing, that has been a major causation factor for the rapid increase of coronavirus in India. And especially during the onset of the summers, when the air is dry, the particulates are suspended, can be suspended for a longer duration of time. Now, as you can see, the other points of concern in that particular study were total volatile organic compound, again, the rampant use of chemicals. Now, this was something which I used to recommend, that let's reduce the use of chemicals, the chemicals in the microenvironments in a way that we are not exposed to chemicals. But sadly, in the COVID era, we are bound to use these chemicals, which would have further deteriorated the condition of TVOCs in the healthcare facilities. CO2 level. Now, CO2 level is said to be around, ASHRAE suggests something around 700 ppm to be the basic unit. But as you can see here, it has been consistently above 600, 700 ppm and has been maximum during the evening and the morning hours when there is a OPD which was happening. So during the monitoring time, we realized it is not the pollutants that are mattering, that matter the most. It is the carbon dioxide also that we miss sometimes. Now, carbon dioxide is something which is directly related to the ventilation aspect. So just to give you a clue where we are, why we were not prepared, why there were negligencies and which were pointed out only when the fatalities were there, is because India per se doesn't have any indoor air quality standards. Now, IGBC lead has credited 9 credit points out of 100. Terry Greha has also given 5 points out of 100 in its rating. But if you talk about a protocol or a guideline on indoor air quality, ISHRAE has come up with its own indoor environmental quality guideline, but it is yet to be recognized by the government and taken forward. Now, these are some of the permissible limits which have been benchmarked for indoor air quality. However, here in India, we are not left with a choice but to compare our data with the National Ambient Air Quality Standards or ASHRAE or WHO, which is not right, because the standards for the Western countries would vary according to the geographical typography of that particular place. Whereas in India, it would be different. Rather, I would even contest and say that these standards, which were framed in 2009, need to be reframed. Because in one of the studies which we did last year during the lockdown, when everything was off in March, after 25th March 2020, the particulate PM2.5 concentration was much above than 60 microgram per meter cube. It ranged around 80 to 90 microgram. So when everything is closed and we are expecting the permissible limit has to be 60, it really needs to be looked at. Now, this is one of the other studies which was conducted in the pre-COVID era. Why I am telling you about the pre-COVID times is because how have the things changed? You would understand the difference in the concentration of pollutants, in the variation of pollutants in different manner. Like if you see here, CO2 was again a problem. Bioaerosol were found to be very high. We consider a 500 CFU per meter cube to be a normal, which you can see a small line in the rightmost down diagram. It was found to be around 11,600 CFU per meter cube. VOCs were again the reason I have told that because of use of chemical-based agents for cleaning, for keeping for using it for other purposes in the medical line was high. But the bioaerosol, it was a ticking bomb. That was an indication that we really need to do something about the bioaerosols. Now, what are the factors which affect the indoor air quality in healthcare facilities? There are various factors. First of it is the ventilation system in the hospitals. Now, I'm not saying that these are the pictures of the ventilation system. This is of any hospital, but it is a depiction of how the air duct looks and what a kind of havoc it can play. Especially when we talk about the lockdown, where these ducts have not been cleaned for a duration of time, where that facility has been closed for a longer duration of time, it could be harboring different bioaerosols. It could be molds, it could be virus, God knows what, which can, once you open it. So it is of utmost importance that the ventilation systems in the healthcare facilities need to be checked. The use of chemicals and disinfectants, which we cannot deny now. I think our homes are dealing with the same problem. We are sanitizing everything. Every time you use a sanitizer, you are exposing yourself to VOCs. But we are in a dreaded times where we are not concerned about the danger that the chemicals pose, but we are more worried about the bioaerosols. But then that solution cannot be a problem in itself. Inappropriate filtration system, there has to be the kind of filtration systems which are there in hospitals need to work on certain areas, which we'll come to further. And finally, how that exhaust air is taken out of that particular facility, and is it not adding to the problem, is something that we need to really look at. Now, a concern for indoor air quality in healthcare facilities, I have jotted it down to crux in terms of COVID. If we are talking about COVID, it is about air exchange. It is about the humidity levels, temperature, differential pressure, and the HVAC system, which is working. So when we talk about ventilation, CO2 is regarded as one of the major surrogate index for ventilation. When we look in the healthcare facilities, that's a neglected area. We only talk about air exchange rates. We talk about pressure gradients. We talk about air distribution, filtration. But I think in the time to come, it is very important to understand that the CO2 levels in healthcare facilities will play a long term when we talk about good ventilation system. Now, air changes in a hospitality unit need to be good. Now, what is air changes per hour? That's a measure of how quickly the air in an interior space can be replaced by the outside air. So when we say air changes, the air changes means that if a ventilation system can perform 10 air changes, it takes 14 minutes to remove 90% of the airborne contaminants. So when we are talking about healthcare facilities, it is suggested to have around 12 to 14 air change rates, whereas higher than 20 air change rates can cause turbulence, and the cost of the ventilation system would also increase. When we talk about the pressure control, now this is before the COVID time, we wanted the building pressure to be positive so that outside air will not bring in lot of problem. But in the COVID times, we are talking about keeping if we have infected patients, we need to keep a negative pressure inside the room where the patients are, so that no virus gets out and contaminates the whole area. In order to ensure clean to less clean airflow, air pressure distribution should be controlled. Where do we need what kind of pressure? And we'll come to it in the next segment. When we are talking about leakages, that needs to be taken into consideration when we talk of pressure control. Now, according to ASHRAE, the air filtration has to be the 30% of air filtration is done by the pre-filter and 90% by final filter. So when we talk about MERV value, the MERV value for healthcare, MERV is the minimum efficiency reporting value. So according to ASHRAE, it needs to be around 14. MERV 14 is said to be satisfactory when we are talking about the healthcare facilities. The odor control, gas absorption is the option for taking care of the gaseous components besides the particle. The filtration takes care of the particulate. Now, the local exhaust ventilation, we need to make sure that there are number of separate exhaust hoods which are give away the exhaust air outside, and which are at least 4 meters above the place or 2 meters above the on the roof of the facility. When we talk about temperature control, the local velocity should be at least 0.2 meter per second. For patient room, it should be 0.1 meter per second. Cool temperatures are to be kept for areas which are operating rooms, clean workrooms, and where we conduct these operation theaters. So most of the the temperature range that we look forward to is 70°F to 75°F. The humidity, yes, it is of more importance when we are talking in terms of healthcare units. The humidification and the dehumidification systems need to be maintained at different levels in the facility. So we consider 30 to 60% as to be a very good range for managing the relative humidity in a facility. Anything greater would add to the problem in terms of it can promote any kind of fungal or mold growth. Now, this is something which is of importance, and I wanted to discuss this because this is the roadmap which has been given by WHO to improve and ensure good indoor ventilation in context to COVID-19 in healthcare settings. This has just come out in March 2021. So they have categorized into natural ventilation and mechanical ventilation. So first step is we need to ask whether the ventilation rate meets the WHO minimum requirements. Now, what are the WHO minimum requirements? The WHO minimum requirements are at least 12 air changes per hour, especially where the aerosol generating procedures are being performed, or 160 liters per second per patient ventilation rates. So if this is not being fulfilled, then we need to assess the opening locations. What are the new openings? We need to that there is cross ventilation, not in the specific areas, especially not in the room or ward where COVID people are there, and where the aerosol generating procedure is also taking place. We need to see that the airflow is from less clean to a cleaner area, and the system does not allow any ventilation to the recommended. We need to check on the occupancy. If the ventilation system is not providing the fresh air intake to that standard, we really need to reduce the occupancy of that particular room per liter per second per patient standard. So in case if no other short-term strategy is taken care of, we will have to rely on stand-on alone cleaners, which are working with HEPA filters. It should be close. Some of the points is that they should be close to the people for the possible treatment of source infection. They should be running without a gap. They should be running constantly, and they should have a clean air delivery rate according to with the room ventilation rate. So these are some of the places where the if the ventilation rate is not meeting the WHO minimum requirement, these are few of the strategies that can be followed. In case they are meeting the requirement, we go on to the next query is, does the airflow move from clean to less clean area? If it does, well and good. If it does not, that we need to work towards it by installing a wall air extractor, using a pedestal fan outside, or working on enabling stack effect in rooms where these aerosol generating procedures are being performed, providing an ante-room, and the ante-room of the double doors in ante-room should not be opening at the same time, so that we are able to barricade the infected person and not take the virus outside of the ante-room. One cost-effective solution that has been given is the use of a plastic door zipper as a partition to create the ante-room. If the airflow is from clean to less clean area, we need to ask the next question, which is the exhausted air correctly managed? Because according to the guidelines, air should be exhausted directly to the outside, away from air intake vents. So we need to make sure that the people are at a distance of minimum 4 meters and the air is exhausted from the roof or at least 2 meters above from where people are. So it could be used of whirlybirds or a stack effect. If the exhausted air is correctly managed, then the air conditioning and heating are performed by non-ducted convectors such as split or fan coil units. Now, we don't want that if due to recirculation, we cannot have any kind of recirculation in an area where we have COVID-19 patients. We need to block that room off or block that set of rooms off. So use of split system and fan coil units is discouraged because they provide poor ventilation. What can be done is we can block and create a negative pressure in that particular room so that the any air which has been in contact with the infected person does not leave out of that particular room. We can also keep a HEPA filter which can on the windows, which can avoid the polluted air to go out. If the air conditioning system this is the best that we can do with the natural ventilation part to it. Similarly, we have the mechanical ventilation strategies, which are working on the same pattern. The requirements remain the same, the steps remain the same. Only the strategies change, because there we will have to take an assistance of the HVAC person who will have to make sure that he has to disable the demand control ventilation controls to reduce the air supply. Now, if the ventilation rate cannot be increased mechanically, then probably we may have to go ahead to the natural ventilation system. The same short-term strategy of using a standalone air cleaner with HEPA filter can also be used in the mechanical ventilation type. If the airflow is not moving from clean to less clean area, in a mechanical ventilation system, we can modify the location of supply and exhaust air devices. That can be done by the HVAC professional. And we can make sure that we add an ante-room in order to have a better airflow directions. So the door in the ante-room should not be open at the same time. And if we can use that, like I have already said, that if we can use a plastic zipper as a partition, that would be a more cost-effective solution. Is the exhausted air managed correctly? According to WHO, the same 4 meter distance from people and 2 meters from this air outlet above, and 4 meters if the air outlet is below from the exhaust. Similarly, for the does the HVAC system work with recirculation mode? Now we need to make sure that the outdoor air percentage needs to be more when we are talking about the HVAC system. that needs to be done in consultation with HVAC professional only. So the filter efficiency generally increases, generally results in increased pressure drop. So we need a negative pressure inside the room where we have COVID-19 patients. We can also, any kind of recirculation mode will not be used when we are talking about air supply in the COVID-19 patient. The same air cannot be circulated in the other areas of the hospital. Now, is the HVAC system equipped with heat recovery? Now, this is the only thing which is different from the natural ventilation system. We need to verify the heat recovery unit. We need to make sure that there are the HVAC system is equipped with a cross-flow air-to-air heat exchangers. If there are leaks, they need to be detected, especially this is where the role of HVAC professional comes into being. Is the HVAC system regularly inspected, maintained, cleaned, and operated? This is something which the people who are working with the HVAC have to make sure that they are not exposed, and they use the manual guidance which has been there for that HVAC thing. Probably in the COVID times, using a PPE, they cannot take out the filters or clean them without using a PPE kit. Then the air conditioning and the heating are performed by non-ducted. That is again the same thing about recirculating units. So we cannot rely on recirculation in the places which are also being supported by the mechanical ventilation. Now, this is something which I think most of you must be aware of, but still I thought that I would highlight some points which are very important and very easy to understand when we talk about air conditioning and ventilation in COVID patients' rooms. So if we are talking about airborne infections isolation room, an existing room can be converted if we cut down any kind of recirculation in that particular system. We need to block off the return air vents in the COVID-19 patient room. There should be adequate outdoor air supply from the AHUs. An independent exhaust blower can be provided to keep that pressure differential in that particular room. The exhaust air quantity should be greater than the supply air quantity to have that kind of negative pressure of at least 2.5 pascals. It should be around 5 or more than 5 pascals if we want it to be better. The supply air quantity should be minimum. If we are talking about a COVID hospital or a room, it should be having at least 12 air changes per hour. The position of the extract air, like you must have seen in the last pictures, should be above the patient's head. Now, when we are there are times when we are not talking about, nobody's getting a bed, or there is some makeshift enclosures that need to be done. If you're not getting a single room, then how to go ahead with a makeshift enclosure? The tent should be covered on all sides with a PVC strip, and there needs to be a light and a fan. If possible, the tent should have an exhaust blower, or rather it is recommended that it has an exhaust blower to extract the air inside from the enclosure. The negative pressure of more than 2.5 pascals need to be maintained in the enclosure, because that makes all the difference. Because if this is not maintained, it would contaminate the other areas in and around that enclosure. If you can see the pictures, if the air conditioned, just a minute, please. The exhaust air after HEPA filtration can be discharged inside the room. So we need to create a localized negative pressure zone in that particular room, so that the infection is controlled and contained and it doesn't spread to the healthcare workers. There are also places where people need to be quarantined, and what we have understood in the scenario, the people were taken into a facility which has different rooms and they were quarantined. But there also we really need to take care of this one basic fundamental thing is about maintaining a negative pressure. So if that particular room is a mechanically ventilated room, we need to cut off the circulatory part to it and make sure that we provide a clean to dirty airflow pattern to the patient, so that the infection doesn't spread into the local areas or to the healthcare workers, frontline workers. The rooms, this is where the standalone air conditioning systems comes into play, and they play an important role. So if people are quarantining, they need to be in a place where there are standalone units and they are not recirculated to the other parts of the buildings. Now, with the present scenario, I was only talking about the COVID-19. What could be the options when we are talking about the COVID-19 perspective? The first recommendation would be the airflow, the proper direction of the airflow should be taken care of, because it is not just the patients who are there in the hospital. There are healthcare workers who could be, and probably that is the reason that we had a lot of healthcare workers succumbing to the COVID-19 scenario, because of these small things that were being missed in a healthcare center. The architectural design should be good for HVAC system to make sure that the supply and extraction points are at the right places. We can use certain options such as HEPA filters and UVGI systems. This is something which I have not touched because this comes to the technology part to it. But it is important that we consider, because this is an area which is still debatable. UVGI has proved to be important. It is working well if we are using at the right wavelength of 254 nanometer. It breaks down the DNA and RNA of any virus or bioaerosols, but it needs to be really needs to be taken care of. For how long are you wanting to do it? Whether it has, because it has its own health implications. So this is subjected to the expert consultancy only. Now, I'd like to close by just saying a very positive thought that it is only in our darkest hours that we discover this true strength of the brilliant light within ourselves that can never, ever be dimmed. So COVID-19 has given us new questions if we are talking about the areas that have really need to be researched. Rather, it has knocked our door to make sure that we have more researches which are being done on indoor air, because we don't have relevant data. Until the time we don't have relevant data, we cannot, the policy makers will not take this aspect of environmental health very seriously. Thanks to you, and I'll now be free to take the questions.
So Tapas ji or Rajesh ji, who's taking over? One of you have to take over. Tapas ji, are you taking over?
Yeah. No issue. Ma'am, there is a question from Mr. Amit Kumar Mittal, what I'm looking in a Q&A box. They're saying that making indoor air quality points mandatory, 5 out of 100 in all green ratings, including Griha, IGBC, etc., rather than keeping it optional. Anything is being in this direction?
They are not mandatory. They are not mandatory points. That is the whole problem. What we have done is we have submitted a guidelines for monitoring to CPCB. We had done it way back, but you know how the government works. So it's still with them. Probably we need to reinvent it and come up with how we can actually make sure that indoor air quality is of prime importance. Because the problem is people don't know how to monitor. Even if I'm talking about students, at one of the, I went as an examiner to one of the institutes, and the student kept that sensor-based instrument at the ground and he was taking the readings. So the idea is The monitoring, the protocol for monitoring needs to be substantiated. That has to come from the government, because they will not accept, if we give them a protocol, they will not accept it. Till the time it is accepted by the government, it cannot be a policy. So I think we really need to work that out. There is one more question. Do you think some prototype study should be done? Yeah, like I showed you one slide of that case study that we have done. I think that is by chance that it is a pre-COVID study. We can have a similar study at a larger scale. So we call it as cohort study. If we can have a cohort study of that type, I think that will be very beneficial, because then these smaller studies, like I did for my PhD, somebody did for their MTech, will, probably we can get all these things together in one bigger cohort study.
So there is the question for the source of strategies, ma'am. So I don't know what source of strategies he's asking. So if you can understand
Source
this. Source of strategies.
I didn't get it.
Anyway, we'll take it then further.
I think what the gentleman is asking, in your presentation, you had written down some strategies for.
That is from WHO.
Yeah,
that is from WHO.
To be followed.
So he's asking you the source from where you derived these strategies. Yeah.
Yeah, that is from World Health Organization. That's one of the very new documents that have come into March 2021.
What is the different droplets, aerosols, and airborne, ma'am?
What are the different?
What is the different droplets, aerosols, and airborne?
See, there are different sizes of droplets. So like we said, if you have some idea, when we talk about pollution, the way we have sizes for particulate matter, like PM10, PM2.5, PM0.3. Similar way, the droplet size, when it is very fine, it is said to be an aerosol droplet. Otherwise, we call it a droplet. So if it is a heavy droplet would be the liquid part to it. If it's a heavy droplet, it's a bigger droplet, it will tend to settle on the ground. The finer ones are the problematic ones, because they may wander. They have the capacity, because they are light, they can attach itself to the particulate also and be airborne. And that could be a source of airborne transmission, which the scientists have taken it forward as.
Shall we use air purifiers?
They will be?
Shall we use air purifier? I mean,
yes, air purifier is good in case you have a COVID patient, yes, but please make sure to handle that filter. If you're removing that filter or replacing that filter, please make sure it is being done by the agent and with right kind of precautions and protocols being followed.
Madam, don't you feel these private hospitals inside the city? Excuse me.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The private hospitals inside the city built just next to our houses should be avoided.
So that is what the WHO has also said. The important thing is that the exhaust air the outlet should be at the top of the roof. Now, the important thing is, what are we calling it as a roof? If it is a 2-story building, if the hospital is a 2-story hospital, then top of the roof would be probably, if there are high rise around, it could be a problem. So the idea is it should be left at least 4 meters above.
My suggestion is we shouldn't have hospitals which are treating these COVID patients inside the population. Why can't there new hospitals be made?
Sir, it is practically not possible. Otherwise, yes, that is the right answer probably.
But why not, sir? Why not, ma'am? It can be like if somebody is allowed to make a hospital of his own, private, let him go outside the concern. Let him go to where there is a lot of greenery and no population around, so that we can solve the problem of people getting affected by the blowers and all that. What good lecture you have given.
Sir, but the problem is that whenever the COVID patients, the critical COVID patients are running out of time, and when we are talking about oxygen levels, they need every time traveling that far from the city. I doubt that that could be an option.
No, I'm talking about future.
Yeah, probably in future, yes.
We should not allow new hospitals to
come on the outskirts. Yes.
This is one way we can avoid all this disease to spread so fast.
But we need to be prepared, sir. This time we need to be prepared with the infrastructure, because this is not the first and the last time that it's happened, and we should not be lax and think that this is the last time that it has happened.
That's what I'm saying, ma'am. HVAC, we being from HVAC, we see hospitals coming next to our house.
Yeah, right. That's a huge problem. Yes.
Yeah, that is the biggest problem. If you're exhausting, if you're trying to pump out the air, you throw it into my house.
Yes, that I totally agree, sir.
Why can't we have hospitals away from us?
Yeah, so I think that the land use pattern that we have is at fault here, sir. Ideally, we should not have hospitals nearby the residential areas.
Yeah, this is one very good thing I learned from you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
There is one queries from Ardwaj, ma'am. He is asking that, do you think some prototype study should be done, as the time for third wave is very limited? What urgent strategies should be followed? Is there any recommendation from WHO?
What urgent strategy should be followed? The urgent strategy, see, if you go through the document, the major stress that WHO has given is on ventilation. Because the problem is, as I said, that one of the studies that we have done, the problem is not only about lack of oxygen to the person, but it is also about the increase in carbon dioxide levels in those indoor spaces. So we really need to do some bigger studies, better studies with more data sets to understand how this dynamics of the carbon dioxide plays a role, especially in this COVID time. So I think if we can control that, some of the problem of the ventilation aspect would be resolved on its own.
So, Dr. Priyanka, I think also one of the very good things about the outdoor air is, the outdoor air, as I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, has a certain percentage of hydrogen peroxide. And this hydrogen peroxide is supposed to be a natural disinfectant. So other than the carbon dioxide content and the ventilation aspect, I think the outside air, has a natural disinfectant. Is that right or wrong?
Yes, sir, it is right, but it is not in the concentrations that it will have a very important effect on the carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide levels are supposed to be below 700 ppm. And everywhere that we did our study, they were found to be more than around 1000 to 1200 ppm. So it is the hydrogen peroxide is in a very fragile percentage. So if you talk about that kind of difference or variation, it will have an impact, but not that much. Not that it will disinfect the air per se.
I agree, but I'm just saying that yes, there's an added advantage of natural ventilation. So if you are increasing the number of air changes, you're also helping to put in a little bit more of disinfectant into the air and then helping the process of disinfection. So it's a positive side of the air changes or increasing the fresh air ventilation, or going by the standards that have been set up of ventilation.
Yes.
So answer is jungle and trees. Trees and jungles are answer, which will really clear it.
Sir, the problem is, yes, trees and jungle are answers, but the answer is sustainable development, sir. Because we are rampantly going ahead. I am staying in Noida, and I see there is no balance between the supply and demand here.
Correct.
There are n number of houses. I think the idea should be that for every extra house, a person should be charged extra. Because we have become so greedy. We need to have as much houses as much possible for our own personal interest, and that is killing the farmland. I know the area where I am presently residing. It was all fields. It was all farmland, but they keep on, and these high rises are the major nuisance because the density is more, and especially in these COVID times, these are the major hubs. My house is in a high rise, and I know that this whole area was a containment zone for the maximum duration of time, because we are using these elevators, the common areas. We are more prone to get infected with certain with this COVID-19.
And this pollution curriculum, it should get into our schools.
It should, sir. It
Yeah,
should. I feel that till the time our kids are not aware of it,
yes,
we'll not be able to. I try to teach it in every possible way in our college, but I think that is the time when kids have grown out of it. Some of them have the research aptitude, some don't. So I think it should be at the school level.
yeah, we should scare them more.
Yeah, not scare them. We should prepare them for what's coming. For what's coming next.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, after listening to your lecture, anybody gets scared.
No, so the idea is just to be prepared.
I think all questions are complete. Anything else questions?
Yeah, there are some questions here. Tapasji says, excellent presentation, Dr. Priyanka. Just an observation, airflow and distribution of supply air and exhaust air. So can you continue? This is a neglected area by HVAC professionals, especially in a controlled environment. All of us must keep in mind that air will follow the least resistant path. I think that is from Mr. Samir Srivastav. So I think, would you like to comment on that, Dr.
Yes, Samirji, that's a very relevant rather. That's what we were discussing also. I think the idea is that the exhaust air, we really need to work it out, because if you go around most of the hospitals in Delhi, the inlet is somewhere near to a garbage ground, or so this is an area which has to be taken care of. But the way our mapping is done, our land use patterns have been made, this has been neglected. So this is something which we really need to work on. This is an area of interest now with these ever-growing cities. Earlier it was not a problem, but yes, now it is.
So to take that further, Samir sir, I think there are two issues I think which doctor was trying to say. One was about the fresh air intakes and the exhaust outlets. The second is about the movement of air inside the space. I think she pointed out some things in the presentation. We spoke about moving from sterile areas to non-sterile areas. She, I think, also spoke about.
So those strategies we really need to keep in mind, the ones which I had mentioned. So we really need to be. It's difficult to maintain, but yes, we really need to follow that part.
No, I don't think it's difficult to maintain, because now we have analytical tools. Like probably you can use the CFD. The CFD will help position the outlets of the the inlets and the outlets very correctly. So if we move on to modern techniques of using CFDs, maybe
probably modeling is the answer. Yes,
modeling is the answer
totally.
to actually positioning the correct location of the outlets and the inlets.
Yeah, actually, that can be a possibility.
Redesigning the ICU. The ICUs where actually the patients are there, if it is redesigned, having citadel all around, so that they can be treated exclusively, instead of if the people who are treating them, they should be passing through a citadel, cleaning themselves, changing into proper rig, then getting into them, which is an enclosed place. So
that's the anteroom. Yes.
Yeah, anteroom. Citadel has to wait, and it should be redesigned, not like attitude gaya wala Dr. Vechi.
Yes.
So, ma'am, one more question is there. I would like to take it. In case of aerosol, it will high rise. Are people staying in high rise are susceptible to greater risk?
Not if high rise people are at greater risk because they are using the elevators. That is the major risk. If we are talking about the aerosol that we are rising, I don't think that the barrier of these floors, it can pass through. But yes, if we are talking about high rise, we are at a greater risk because we are using the same elevator. If for example, there is a COVID-19 patient who has just gone down and I come up after that, So that is the time when even in 2 minutes duration, I can possibly catch that kind of infection. So yes, I am at a greater risk compared to the people who are living in ground or first floors, or they have their own areas. Yes.
So there are one or two more questions there from Mr. R. Bharadwaj, I think, and then from Mr. Amit Kumar. Can you read that? It's in the chat box. It talks about.
Yeah, R. Bharadwaj is, I think, said some use. He's said that exhaust air should be treated before exhausting
Outside. Yes,
yeah,
they do.
fume treatment plant.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
there is a question in case of a hospital in Delhi. There is a lot of garbage just near the entrance. In these times, why is not being addressed? Like sir, I said that the mapping has been done in a way in which if you go to Max Paharpur, Padparganj, if you go to that area, you should just see how the nearby area is. One is the parking lot. So you may probably have the supply from that area where you have a parking lot. And similarly, I have not seen the exhaust. So probably they are at the top or they are somewhere around. But the nearby areas, they have not been addressed in the ground plan itself. So that is the problem. At least now that we have been through this COVID times, that will give us an idea about how we need to change the land use
and mindset of the population.
Sir, I would say the population mindset would change once we stick to our ground rules. We say that this is an area, if we see at a map, a city map, earlier they used to make sure that the hospitals are away from the residential area. Now the hospitals are in between the residential.
Next door.
So the mapping, the way the authorities take into, I think more about policy. Yes, it is more about stricter action.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. And many appreciations messages we are receiving. Amit Kumar Mittal, very crisp and relevant session, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice presentation, madam. And many of those I am reading.
Thank you. Thanks for a patient ear.
Yeah, Anil Thakur, great session, good learning. We need a strict
regulation. Yes,
regulation.
I support you on this. Yes, we do.
So forum is open. If anything shared, sir, Amit Kaushik sir, Amarjit sir, Satish sir, KD sir. So otherwise we'll.
This session was very good. The session is very good. Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks.
Amarjit sir, do you want to say something?
Any message you would like to share with us?
बहुत ही यूजफुल रहा सर, बहुत सारी जानकारी मिली.
Should there be, there is a question, should there be an organization to check the IAQ requirement? Sir, we really need to have that organization. Not even for the hospitals. I think we need it for our schools. We need it for all the public places. So probably the next session when we have, I'll give you a timeline of different countries who have standards for different public places. We don't. So we really need to have somebody to check for the IAQ. IAQ has to come in at the forefront. Till then, it's all useless. We can not do anything about it.
That's true.
Yeah, Moria sir wanted to say something, I think. Moria sir?
धन्यवाद कहना चाह रहा हूँ मैडम को मैं.
Okay.
क्योंकि बहुत ही अच्छा मतलब टॉपिक और बहुत सारी चीजें क्लियरिटी हुई आई.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Amit sir, any line from your side, Amit Kaushik sir? Hello. Anyway, KD sir, any message you would like to share with you? Or
I would say, Dr. Saab, it was a wonderful presentation. I enjoyed every minute of whatever time I spent here, and it was great to great to hear you out. And it's all just set me thinking that why don't we make use of your capabilities and your strengths, and we indulge in some research as maybe as the Delhi chapter of ISHRE and as as the merit chapter of subchapter. We are all one one particular team. So why don't we indulge in some research and, as what you did, where you found out the various parameters during various times, of in an OPD, etc., etc. So that was a pre-COVID time, so we can take it up in the post-COVID times. We can
Yes, that
do
would
a
be
study
great, sir.
together. I think that will be very industry useful. It will not encroach into anybody's territory, but also bring in a lot of, and like-minded people can get involved in this, and then we can soon bring out a paper or something like this, which
We
will,
should, sir. I am totally in for this. And
so,
research in this area, please feel free anytime. I am more than willing to go ahead, sir.
So let's go ahead. I think one of the major takeaways from this particular, I think, webinar here is that our team desires so to associate with you on this topic of research. We can
Yes.
take it up even, if we can go to a research where I don't know if there's any data which talks about, like you spoke about the number of air changes and the number of air changes, how it affects the aerosols, the dilution of
Yes, sir.
aerosols. I don't know if somebody's done a real-time study on this and generated data, or all this data is being derived from from books and from data
So,
which is abroad. So if you do some real-time experiments like
yes,
this,
we need to do
so,
that, sir.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
a data from abroad, sir.
yeah.
So the whole idea is we need to have some real-time studies in India for our own geographical
Conditions.
origins, and go ahead with it, because that will be different. I'm so sure things would be different here.
So let's do that, ma'am. I think, and I would say that I really enjoyed this. It's a wonderful. I think you're a
Thank
wonderful
you.
speaker, a wonderful
Thank you,
teacher
sir.
for sure. And so I think it was great listening to you. Really enjoyed. So thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
having spared time, and thank you so
Thanks,
much.
sir. Thanks so much for your
I think,
motivating
and
words.
all the
Thank you.
panelists, I believe, probably would have gone back richer in terms of experience and in terms of the knowledge level. So thank you very
Yes,
much
sir.
from my side.
Multiple items. Many,
So
many, many.
I think we should get the final message from Dr. Priyanka ma'am, and then we will go for vote of thanks.
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone who's been there so patient listening to me, and coming up with the questions, because the presentation mode, I am a very orthodox old aptitude person. I like to interact with people. So when we are doing this webinar, the whole presentation is quiet. You don't get to know, don't get to see whether people are gauging what you are saying or not. But yes, these question answers really, it is a learning for me too. So I always look forward to that session. So it has been enriching for me as well, and I look forward to this association. Thank you, Rajesh sir, Satish sir, KD Singh sir, Amit ji, and Amarjeet ji. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So thank you very much, ma'am. And just moving to the last section of this session. Before that, I would like to say that one who is non-member of ISRE, I would like to say that please join us. And for joining, ISRE is very user-friendly right now. You can go to the website of this www.isre.in. You can join now on ISRE website. You will find out the option that there is a subchapter selection. You can select merit subchapter, and you can join merit subchapter membership as well. So because membership is our strength, and one membership comes, then we think that we are doing great, or this that kind of thing motivate us. So this is the request, and pass on to the person who is really wanted to know about the HBSC and our industry. This is the best platform, what I'd like to say. And I'm not much older here, but whatever learned from 2 years, so this is the best platform when you can excel your professional as well as personal networking, like anything. So last section, as we are with the time, I request, yeah,
Just to add, sorry for taking a minute, one more minute. So just want
definitely.
to add that we'll encourage people to be our members and be a member of any of our sub chapters or chapters, and of Delhi chapter, or any of our 4 sub chapters of any people who are here today. And all we can tell you is that we have a very exciting year ahead. We have lots of wonderful webinars like this coming up, like what we had today with Dr. Priyanka Kulshreshtha. So we have a lot of very learned speakers, and we have good programs coming up. So we would encourage people to join up. I'm sure it will enhance your knowledge levels, your skill sets, make you better professionals, and make us also wiser people, because it's always a exchange of knowledge, which helps each other. So maybe we'll be also be benefited We'll invite you to be one of the speakers if you're willing to be a speaker and you're willing to share information with us and share knowledge with all of us. We'll be more than happy. So thank you very much. And I'll just pass this on to Rajesh Kumar ji to propose the vote of thanks. Thank you, Tapas ji, for giving me that time.
Thank you, sir.
After everybody has spoken so big, everything, I think I got no words to speak. But I can only tell you, ma'am, please take care and God bless. We want people like you to be there to guide us. And today's function, this whole program was so good that every word of yours I have jotted down, and I feel I can talk on length now on air quality. And thank you so much. 1 hour, if you can do this to us. I don't know what happens if we listen to you many more times.
It would be my pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. God bless. Thank you so much.
So congratulations, Merit subchapter and the entire team and the team of DCI, admin staff of DCI for having put this program together. I think it's a wonderful effort. Great effort, Rajesh Kumar ji and Satish Kumar ji and the entire team of the Merit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank and salute to DCI.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Getting things up. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Always behind us for any effort. So, should we close this session, sir? Rajesh sir, should we close?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Please.
again, thanking ma'am. We should let us all take care and leave.
Yeah, big round of applause for Priyanka ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you.